Portents of Fear is a horror fiction podcast which is intended for mature audiences. Discretion is advised. Welcome, Fearlings, to another weird and horrifying tale made just for you. I am your host, Michulhu, and I'll be your guide into the macabre and mysterious. In tonight's story, we learn how Velma from Death Cloud gets started in the evil scientist racket in Project Minotaur. Before we get started, take a moment to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a single terrifying story. 1993, secret lab hidden near Mount Olympus, Washington. Dr. Velma Wallace peered through the glass at her creation, while Dr. Daisy Leon threw up in the corner. It didn't help that the room smelled of rot and human despair. She wiped her mouth. Velma smiled at her greatest accomplishment. A 9-foot-tall, 1-ton Minotaur stood in the center of a circular glass cell. A man's torso hung impaled on its right horn. Blood dripped from the creature's face. Daisy composed herself and got cleaning supplies, never looking at the monster. What had they done? She knew Velma was, well, not stable. Evil, really. But to create something like this? What was worse is that she had helped. Daisy was complicit. "Sorry, I thought you had a tougher stomach," Velma said, not looking away from the glass. "It tore that poor bastard apart like a rag doll. I've never seen anything like it. She hesitated, knowing that what she said next would be considered blasphemy. It could also cost her her life. But the words bubbled up in her throat anyway. "This isn't right, Velma. We need to get rid of this thing." "Do you realize how many crimes against humanity we've broken making it?" Daisy questioned. "You're overreacting. Would you like to tell the board your concerns? Tell them we wasted $500 million in 4 years because you got cold feet? No. This is the soldier of the future. Imagine 10,000 Minotaurs stampeding across the battlefield. This project is going to secure the lab's funding for the next 20 years, Velma proclaimed. Daisy put the cleaning supplies down and walked between Velma and the creature's cage. "We're creating an enslaved species to kill for us. Birthing the damn thing took the life of its human mother." "Velma, even you have to see that this is wrong," pleaded Daisy. "Science is messy. And I remind you, it was your job to find an alternative to human incubators. Want to save lives? Do your job." Velma walked past her and whispered something low next to the glass. Daisy couldn't make out what she said. Then Velma walked out, leaving her alone with the creature. She could feel it staring at her. Daisy tugged on her lab coat as she stared back. Memory hit hard like it always did. Bright headlights approaching fast, the sound of metal colliding into metal, blackness she'd wished never ended. She pulled a chip from her pocket, running her fingers over its surface. 10 years sober, but no amount of sobriety would save her husband from what she did. Sometimes she looked to her left and saw his mangled corpse next to her, his eyes staring just like the Minotaur's. She placed the chip back in her pocket. The torso slid from its horn, but the creature took no notice. Its stare was unnerving. 2 giant black bovine eyes that glistened with soft reflective light. It stepped to the glass. She stepped back. Gently, it placed its hand on the glass. Daisy was amazed. It had never shown such a response, preferring violence and rage instead. She stepped forward cautiously till she stood in front of it. "Daisy," it said in a guttural tone. Her eyes widened. "You can talk?" It nodded. "Help me. Free me," it pleaded. I can't. Where would you go? They'll catch you," she pointed out. "Worth the risk. Please, help me." Daisy stepped back again. "No, I can't." She ran. "Wait, don't go. Help me." Daisy paced her kitchen floor. A glass of water sat on the counter. She wished it was whiskey. Even after 10 years, she still fantasized about drinking. It gnawed at her guts, squeezed her throat, and twisted her brain. Just one more drink. You'll never need another one. Take the edge off one last time. It was a lie that played over and over in her head. Maybe one more drink would help her figure out what to do. She couldn't let that thing out of its cage. She knew how it fed. It was insanity to even think about it. Then there was the board and Velma, who'd kill her if the Minotaur didn't beat her to it. There was a knock at the door. She rushed to open it. "Pam, thank God." "I got your message. Where's the fire?" "Let's take a walk," Daisy insisted. She pulled Pam by the arm out the door and into the spring darkness, closing the door behind them. Can you slow down? I'm not a giraffe like you, Pam pointed out. Sorry, I think my place is bugged. I can trust you, right? I need to talk to someone. In our line of work, no, you can't trust me, or anyone else for that matter. It's rule number 1. Whatever you have to talk about, tell it to your dog and leave it at that. I don't have a dog, Daisy said. Then get one. They can never betray you, Pam instructed. Oh, come on, I need your help. I've got no one else to turn to. Fine, but you were warned. The Minotaur can talk. Bullshit. They both stopped and looked at each other for just a moment, agreeing with their eyes not to acknowledge the pun. It did. It asked for help. I could see the pain in its eyes. We have to do something. First off, it's a monster, not a human. Don't put emotions on it that it can't have. Second, who's this we you speak of? I just got put on this project. It's my big break after 5 years as a second-string researcher in the lab. I'm not screwing this up. Which reminds me, how the hell did Velma Wallace become the head of this whole thing? She's like 12. She's 20 and a certified genius, that's how. Graduated with a PhD in chemistry and biology at 15. She's also a psychopath who I'm 99% sure can't feel emotion. I think that last part is the bigger qualification, Daisy mused. They stopped walking and she looked around. The lab built a small town. All the businesses were owned by them. It was in the middle of nowhere. She knew they were being watched right now. Were there microphones everywhere too? Her anxiety spiked and she doubled over. Okay, calm down, breathe, Pam said. Daisy took a large breath and closed her eyes. I have to do something, Pam. She wants to make thousands of them. I can't have all that blood on my hands. I already have so much, Daisy finally admitted. You're a good person, which is going to get you in trouble. My advice? Do your job, don't say anything to anyone. The project will go on whether you fight it or not. Why risk your career or even life over a 9-foot-tall future hamburger? The visual of them grinding up the Minotaur caused her stomach to turn again. Acid splashed into her esophagus, and she quickly stood up straight, only to have her head become foggy. She stumbled. Pam quickly steadied her. Whoa, easy. Let's get you back home. After Pam left, Daisy watched some TV and played some SNES. Mario usually calmed her nerves, but it wasn't working. She tossed and turned until 2 a.m. wondering what the hell she was going to do. Pam was a dead end, too worried about her own career. If she told Velma it could talk, she might give the Minotaur a lobotomy, or worse. The board wouldn't hear what she had to say either. They'd spent millions on development and money trumped ethics. She thought about going to the government, but they greenlit the project in the first place. Dark money kept the lights on. For all she knew, the board were congressmen and women. Or worse, the president himself. She'd never seen them before. The only way out was to gather evidence and give it to a journalist, someone who'd believe. Daisy parked close to the entrance. A quick escape could be needed. The sun had yet to arrive and the pre-morning chill was biting. She hurried into the building. There were the obligatory donuts left out every morning by the board, or at least their lackeys. She grabbed a bear claw, poured some coffee, and headed to her lab. The Minotaur slept in the fetal position surrounded by carcasses. The AC struggled to move the stench out. The coffee helped mask some of the rot. She took time eating her pastry and looked him over. Asleep, the creature didn't look horrifying. It looked like a strangely shaped bull, but still. She hoped to get some time alone today, enough to collect the proof she needed. Once she finished her bear claw and coffee, she went to the back of the lab where the human holding pens were. She checked their food troughs and water bottles. These people were what the Minotaur ate, like the man from the previous day. They lived like gerbils, except gerbils usually don't get a cocktail of pharmaceuticals to keep them docile. 5 humans, all laying against the bars, zombie-like. She looked them over. 3 had sickly yellow skin, mouths covered in sores. She wondered if they could even walk anymore. The other 2 were new arrivals, still healthy, but it wouldn't take long for that to change. One of her jobs was to administer their drugs. She decided not to. They would start to sober up after a while, and that might be helpful to her and them. When she first got started at the lab, using human test subjects horrified her, like the Minotaur, but she had a choice: spend the rest of her life in jail or work for an evil company funded by the government. She'd lied to herself that she had no choice, but in her heart, she knew she couldn't keep saving her own skin at the expense of others. Velma arrived right at 9 a.m. carrying a cream-filled donut and a giant thermos full of coffee. Hey, can you go make some more coffee, please? Velma asked, not really looking at Daisy. Rolling her eyes, she went back to the break room. Pam was there, already making coffee. That bitch filled her thermos right in front of me, taking the rest of the coffee, and just walked out. I don't care if she is a genius. She needs to learn some manners. Yeah, she's letting the lead position go to her head. I never thought that at 40 I'd be taking orders from a dead-eyed 20-year-old. You feeling better? Daisy thought for a moment. Pam was a friend, but only so far. Yep, I'm fine. I just panicked a little. Good. Now, let's go see what Satan wants us to do today. Daisy smiled and they headed back to the lab. Right before going back in, Daisy clicked record on the mini tape machine. She had about 3 hours worth of tapes on her. The security guards didn't question it. Scientists were always taking memos as they worked. In fact, it surprised her how lax security was. Of course, once they realized that she took documents and floppy disks, they'd hunt her down. Okay, Dr. Wallace, what is on the docket for today? Daisy asked in a clear voice. Both Pam and Velma gave her a look. They never used doctor in the lab. It was cumbersome and annoying. Dr. Wallace? Okay. I don't know, Dr. Leone. Why don't you tell me? Velma snapped as she looked over the previous day's data. I don't remember. Velma set her clipboard down and turned towards Daisy and Pam. You wrote the schedule for the week. We're doing a field test today. But since Pam is with us now, I want you to stay here and come up with ideas to avoid using human incubators. Are you all right? You seem off, Velma asked. No, you're right. I didn't sleep well. That's all. Fine. Just make sure to dope up the food stock back there and maybe have maintenance come in and clean all the cages. It's getting really bad in here. Hunt, what? All our human subjects are on tranquilizers, Pam pointed out. Oh no, we're not using them. I got a new clean batch for the test. They're already at the site. Should prove fun. The security team will be here soon to take the Minotaur out to the test site. Don't you think it's dangerous to take him out, Dr. Wallace? No, I don't. I put a chip in his brain after he reached a year. He can't defy me. And if I want, I can kill him with this remote, Velma said, producing a strange-looking gadget from her white coat. What is with you this morning? Why do you keep calling me Dr. Wallace? None of us use our last name. It's annoying. Pam gave Daisy a warning look. I just thought it'd be nice to be more professional, but you're right. As for the experiment, I feel like we're moving so fast, Daisy said. The board wants results. The Pentagon wants their super soldiers. You know what's at stake. Stop being weird and do your job. Daisy nodded. Pam stepped forward almost like a journalist. What do you think the people will say when they see these soldiers? Pam inquired. That's for the PR department to worry about. I make the monsters. I don't market them. The cold morning air held the last gasp of winter. Pinks, oranges, and purples painted the sky. Mount Olympus's west peak rose to the east of the lab. The terrain was rugged, with pine and birch trees closely packed together. Several cameras had been deployed the day before. Pam and Velma watched as the truck unloaded the Minotaur into the test area of the forest. A large 16-foot-high electrified fence wrapped around a 300 by 300-yard space. Dozens of guards patrolled the perimeter with AR-15s. In the center of this area were 10 people who'd been told that if they survived, they'd be very rich. A tent with video feeds from different cameras sat a few feet from the truck. The doctors sat down to watch the hunt. Pam shook her head. This is going to be a massacre, she said. I hope so. It gets us a step closer to delivery. So last night the board sent me a video of you and Daisy taking a walk near her place. She was very animated, seemed worried about something. Then this morning she was acting weird. What did you talk about? Velma asked, eyes on the screen. Well, she was worried about the ethical implications of this project. But this morning she said it was just a panic attack and not to worry, Pam said, then immediately felt guilty. The Minotaur found its first victim, ramming its horn through the woman's leg and ripping it off. She cried out. Blood sprayed everywhere. Within a few moments, she was dead. The Minotaur continued. I knew she was a bleeding heart all along. I could tell by the way she's always looking at the human livestock or her concern for the mothers in the Minotaur program. There's no room for feelings in what we do. Velma took a drink of her coffee. The Minotaur closed in on 2 men near the perimeter. They didn't see it stalking them. It stepped forward, grabbing one by the throat and throwing him into the electric fence. Arcs of energy coursed through his body, cooking him like a hot dog. The other ran frantically, but immediately tripped. The Minotaur simply stepped on the back of the prey's head, smashing the skull in. Ooh, that was nice, Velma cheered, then turned back to Pam. So what did you tell her? That this is the job and she should quit if she can't handle it? The Minotaur quickly traversed the wooded maze and dispatched 3 more prey with unnerving ease. Screams bounced through the trunks of the trees. Each kill made Velma's smile a little wider, which was unsettling to see. She can't quit. No one can, you know that. What we do here is too secret, too damning for anyone to walk away from. There's only one way out, but you already know that. I'm betting you don't know why she's here, though. I thought they recruited her after college, like most of us, Pam replied. Nope. She killed her husband and 2 other people while driving drunk. She hit an oncoming car doing 110 and survived with minor wounds. In court, she admitted she wanted to kill her husband and herself. She thought he was cheating. He wasn't. The court gave her 80 years on 3 second-degree murder convictions, but the board worked out a deal for her release. Jesus, that's horrific, but I guess not as bad as watching a group of people getting slaughtered by a Minotaur we created, Pam admitted. I created, Velma snapped. You created, sorry. So we really shouldn't judge. The final survivor, a young man who seemed adept at hiding, could not be found by the creature. He'd climbed a tree early on, the wind masking his scent. Velma could see him clinging on for dear life and shaking with fear on one of the cameras. I judge her for her weakness. We're working to make the world a better place. She can't see the big picture, that's all. No more human soldiers from the U.S. need to die. We can also cull the populations of certain countries, to fight global warming. Imagine China and India with 1/3 of the people, or an empty Africa. More resources for the right people. Pam tried to hide the horror she felt hearing this. Velma grabbed the mic. All right, we've returned the creature to its pen. You are our winner. 5 million is all yours. Please climb down. She watched as the young man shimmied down the tree and excitedly ran towards the exit. The Minotaur appeared in front of him and smacked him into a large tree. He cried out for help, screaming he was a winner. Velma laughed. He was dead within a minute. People are stupid, too trusting. They think the world will fix itself. It won't. You need a firm grip on humanity's throat to keep it in line, Velma hissed. Pam shifted in her seat. She knew they did some dark things, but she didn't think a plot to reshape the world was one of them. The monster returned to the fence line. Velma met him. You couldn't find the last one. Bit disappointing. You'll need to do better in next week's live round exercise or you might be coming home dead. I will not fail you, the Minotaur replied. Pam couldn't believe what she just heard. She walked up next to Velma. Daisy told me it could talk, but I didn't believe her. I knew she was faltering for some time now, so I had the Minotaur ask for help, knowing that pulling on her heartstrings would make her do something stupid like call you to talk. Pam didn't reply. She just stepped away as the creator and her monster looked at each other through the electrified fence. The lab was oddly quiet. Daisy wasn't sure just how long she had or who was watching. She called a team for maintenance. More movement would make it harder to track what she was doing. They wouldn't touch the human cages, but they did clean everything else. She gathered together all the floppy disks and papers on the project, placing them in her briefcase. The plan? Work the day as normal, leave, then try to get out of town before they realized what had happened. Once they were done, she sighed heavily. Everything was set. The humans in the cages started to whine. Their drugs were wearing off. She sat down at the computer and started working on the incubation problem. She figured that if she got caught and killed, at least she could help humans from having to birth Minotaur. The process was painful and drawn out. A human woman would have a genetically altered fertilized egg implanted using IVF. The problem started almost immediately when the egg attached to the uterine wall. A Minotaur pregnancy required 50 times the amount of calories as a human one. Keeping up with this dietary demand placed a great strain on the mother, draining her of all her energy and causing her to eat almost 24/7. The next issue was the length of the pregnancy, 2 years. This was due to the genetic encoding that had to take place to create a new species. If the mother survived to delivery day, she was left a weak shell. No woman had survived more than a day after giving birth. Daisy wrote up the idea of a synthetic womb, a biotube where a baby's development could be monitored closely and food could be easily given. The technology was possible, and she almost regretted that she'd never actually get to build it. She finished the paper and printed it out. She'd give it to Velma on her return. Her pager went off. It said run. Her heart stopped for a moment as fear set in. She grabbed the briefcase, opened the human cages, and headed out the door. It had to be Pam, which meant Velma knew. She went downstairs to the lobby. 3 guards stood at the door. She straightened herself up and acted casual. "Hey guys, need to run to the house real quick. Forgot part of my research." She walked right past them. They smiled back and in a chorus said, "Sounds good, Dr. Leone." Right as she opened the door, the security phone rang. She looked back to see one of them point at her. She took off running. They chased. At full speed, she jumped into her car. The security guards tried to block her path, but they were too late. She sped off with a heavy tire screech. Shit, she thought. It wouldn't be long till the local police found her. She laid on the gas. Her memories of that night flashed before her eyes as the speedometer climbed. 2 police cars lit up behind her. No time to go slow. She reached 100 and flew out of the village. They kept on her tail. She skidded out onto the freeway going south, swerving between cars, her veins full of adrenaline. A bullet struck the back window. She swerved but regained control quickly. Ahead, there were 2 18-wheelers. The police were about a car length apart. She gunned the engine, hitting 110, steering for the side of the road. She shot by the trucks. The police tried to follow, but the lead car lost control, ending up under the wheels of one semi-truck, and the second car careened into the ditch upside down. She eased off the gas and thanked God. Back at the lab, the Minotaur was returned to its cage. Pam looked around quickly, hoping her message got through. "Where's Daisy?" "Wait, the human subject cages are empty," Velma noticed. At that moment, both women were tackled, brought to the linoleum floor with a thud. Velma rolled with her attacker, ending up on her back and staring into the face of a crazed victim, one of the new ones. She brought her knee up sharply into his groin. He grimaced in pain as she threw him off and scrambled to her feet. He remained on the ground in the fetal position, no longer a threat. Pam let out a howl as the woman on top of her bit into her neck like a starved vampire. She pushed hard, causing her attacker to disengage, taking a hunk of flesh with her. Velma turned to help, but then stopped dead in her tracks. Standing a few feet away stood the Minotaur. One of the escaped subjects had unlocked its cage. She reached in her pocket, realizing that her remote control was missing. Quickly spitting, she rushed to the human cages and locked herself in. The creature stomped its massive hoof on Pam's chest, shoving through the sternum right to the floor with great force. It turned its attention to the escaped humans and killed them. Velma felt terror she had never known. The pen she occupied was covered in the slime of human suffering, but her focus was on the monster she created. The Minotaur looked at her from across the room, lowered its head, and hurtled forward. The impact caused the metal cage to bend in. Velma cried out. The creature stepped back. "I won't kill you, mother. This time," it said with a hot snort. She held her body as close to the wall as she could, breathing short hummingbird breaths. Slowly, she opened her eyes. She was alone. The cage door was so badly damaged it wouldn't open. She'd have to wait for rescue. That's when she noticed she had soiled herself. Daisy drove for as far as her gas tank would take her, fearing more cops would come. Forced off the road to fill up, she grabbed 2 candy bars and a soda. The smell of gasoline and cool night air mingled together. Back in the car, she cracked the can open and ripped into her candy bar. All that sugar was exactly what she needed. Portland was 30 minutes south. She'd stay there for the night, then go on to LA. Someone there would believe her story. She took another bite and pulled back out onto the freeway. Weeks later, 6 stone-faced people, half women, half men, sat staring at the young doctor. She shifted nervously. "As you are aware, Dr. Wallace, we lost a considerable amount of money on Project Minotaur. Dr. Leone's efforts have successfully gotten funding pulled for the project, and the creature is still loose in the woods. It's ironic that we're so close to Mount Olympus. Our men are still hunting for it, and so far we've lost 10 of them. The government has asked us to leave the area, set up someplace new. This is going to cost us millions more," an older woman said. "I know this has been an unmitigated disaster, but I have a new path to creating super soldiers. Imagine, a soldier dies on the battlefield only to reanimate, to keep fighting. We could even create a virus that dies off after a certain time, one that would help eliminate a large batch of the population." "You're talking about creating a zombie outbreak?" the woman asked as the board members looked to one another. "Exactly." Velma is an evil one. This was a prequel to Death Cloud, so if you haven't watched it, you should. Could you escape a Minotaur? Be sure to tell us in the comments. If you liked this Portents of Fear tale, consider joining our Patreon. There's a link in the description below. Want more horrific stories? Click on one of our other episodes on your screen now. Good night, Fearlings. Sleep well, if you can.